Hi everyone, my name is Charlie, and today we begin the second reading vlog of Victober. Ran out of hairspray this morning, so this is what we have to deal with. But hey, these things happen. Can you tell I'm liking this cardigan at the moment? I seem to be wearing it all the time. I chose not to run over the child, who looked like a miniature version of Valma from Scooby-Doo, so should have known better than to cross the road without looking this morning. But I chose to be the bigger person and not run her over, because frankly I didn't need the trip to dispose of a body. Yesterday didn't do much reading because, despite best efforts to keep saying to myself, edit part of the vlog each day so it's ready on Sunday, I don't do that. So I get to Sunday and have to edit the entire thing. Hopefully, I don't do that this week. After all of that, after editing and walking the dog, I did settle down to read North and South. I have finally hit the page 100 mark. She's finally made it up north, and it's very frustrating to see how upset Margaret gets about being in the north, considering I'm northern myself. But there has been an interesting conversation about the working classes and movement within the classes, which I think was quite interesting indeed, and hearing some of this family's attitudes is very telling for the time, but I think that some of those attitudes are still here today. I'm intrigued, wondering where this book might go. I'm sure there are sparks going to happen between Margaret and Thornton. I'm pretty sure we all know that. I'm pretty sure that's what happens. Because really, isn't it just Pride and Prejudice? Just minus the wit with a bit more gobby folk in it. I don't know, you'll have to let me know. Anyway, I'm boiling the kettle to get some coffee, so I'm gonna go do that.
In a startling turn of events, it's Tuesday morning. It's 10 o'clock, and I've only just woken up. Yesterday, I decided that I wanted to acquire some jigsaws. Now, I'm particularly fond of these by Mike Jupp and wanted the Isle of Winter one. I would also like the Isle of Christmas one that I know he's done, but I've only seen that once, and it was at my shop and I didn't pick it up when I had the chance. But I would like to finish that with my mother this weekend, so decided the one that I would try is Disney's Lion King, because this was a favourite film of mine as a child, and thought, well, it'll be nice to do this. It's Disney, it'll be simple. I didn't take into account all of the stars around the edges, and I'm one of those people who has to complete the edges first, so I have that to be contending with. So I'll be doing me jigsaw, wired headphones in, and listening to an audiobook, but I haven't decided which one yet, because as we know, the Juliet Stevenson narration sometimes frustrated me with North and South, and I do want to listen to Great Expectations, as that is a buddy read with Charlie Brooke, and I also want to continue with French and Saunders Titting About podcast, which I've got 3 episodes left of, but I kind of eke those out. Either way, I didn't read any more of North and South yesterday. I intended to, whilst I did this jigsaw, but I ended up listening to Traffic Cops because they were in Cheshire, particularly my mum's hometown. So whenever something like that happens, I end up watching to see whether anyone I know turns up. They didn't, but they could have done. It was just that they had the faces obscured. Well, plans for today. Drink me first cup of tea of the day. I found that usually when I've just woken up, until I've got a bit of caffeine in me, I can end up being a bit nasal. I also bought another jumper home from work yesterday and didn't wash it before trying it on, which is always a mistake because I know I can't go with dust. So, jigsaw, listen to something, drink tea, read, write, arithmetic, until hopefully this spot of very nice autumnal weather continues and Sally and I hot-foot it to the forest for the first time in a fortnight. Just trying to have a very languid day today, despite the fact that I've had very languid days last week. Sometimes it's nice to have a languid day by choice, not by force. And also that's usually how I spend Tuesdays anyway. Because for whatever reason, work just leaves you feeling like you need to decompose a bit. And yes, I'm aware, it's the wrong word. But I used the word decompose for too long now to start telling people I'm decompressing. It's just my go-to. Ta-da.
It's been a few hours. I began by listening to the final 2 episodes of Series 3 of French and Saunders Titting About on Audible before listening to North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell, and I have an unexpected announcement for me. I'm going to be DNFing this book. I did not have the best time when it came to Sylvia's Lovers by Elizabeth Gaskell. I found it difficult to get through and I kept trying to find an audiobook of that novel to The Pillow's Going to Continue Falling further towards us as Sally messes around. I found it difficult to get into Sylvia's Lovers, went searching for an audiobook and DNF that for a year before finishing it for the following Victober that I'd originally started it in. And I'm finding a similar problem with North and South. There is something about Elizabeth Gaskell's prose that I am not the biggest fan of. I don't know what it is. I haven't pinpointed it, but I find myself getting more frustrated as I listen. And maybe that's a good sign for me as a reader. And I think that I might navigate towards this book as a background book, as when I finished another one, because this one has slowed down my reading and I'm not happy about that. I got through Framley Parsonage rather quickly. Admittedly, I was ill at the time and did have more time on my hands, and I've been reading North and South whilst I've been at work, and that has been to its detriment because it's meant that I haven't perhaps got through as much as I could have done, and that might be reflecting badly on my experience with the book, so I want to get through something else and then go back to it. However, I do have my issues with the characters, and these might be choices that Gaskell's going to challenge as the book goes along. Firstly, we have the character of Margaret Hale, who I am just not a fan of, and I feel like there's the possibility that she could be like Malta Vestrit in the Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb, and she'll go on this currently unimaginable journey as a character and her perspective on life will be changed. But she is a snob, and the way in which she talks about the north of England and the people in the north of England is rubbing me the wrong way. And then the personification of the people of the north and the way that Gaskell characterises them, I just don't like. And I know this book is 100 and something years ago in the past, and that people probably thought of the North in this fashion, but the disparaging tone and the way in which the lives are being discussed, I'm finding irksome. And again, I'm aware that this could change as Margaret goes into these factories and she finds out what the living conditions and the working conditions for these people are like. But at the moment, it's just rubbing me the wrong way. And then you have the snobbery, the way in which they're discussing shopkeepers and people who work for a living. And I'm like, your father just gave up his living, love, and you currently don't have much money going about you. You're probably worse off than some of these people who are actually working for a living. You're talking about the fact you used to just go and wander around in a field because you just had this peaceful fucking life of Riley. And oh my goodness, she irritates me. Margaret Hale irritates me to the point that I don't want to read this book. I don't want to listen to this book. Juliet Stevenson at first had a great narration for this book, and then she starts putting on this northern accent, and I'm just like, my goodness, have you ever visited the north, Chuck? My bleeding heck. I am too annoyed to continue with this book today. And it's going to be a case of having, if I do go back to it, eking out the chapters, because the religious bent of the book frustrates me as well. So there's so much within here that I find really, really, really annoying. And as much as I want to read it because it's a Victorian novel that's going to be talking about the North, the way in which it's talked about the North currently is enough to annoy me. And it might be because I'm noticing these Pride and Prejudice parallels as well. I don't know. At the moment, I'm also reminded of Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And I despise that book with a passion. And if I continue with this, I'm going to end up despising it at the moment, because of the frustration I'm feeling. I think some of the frustration stems from the fact that it's not grabbed me in the way that Framley Parsonage did. And maybe this is the thing. Maybe I have to avoid reading Anthony Trollope in the first week of Victober each year, because last year I read I read Dr. Thorne first, and then the next book I read really annoyed me. And maybe that's the thing that's going to happen. I'll read an Anthony Trollope whose prose I really like, and then the next book isn't the same prose that I find so bouncy and vivid and really enjoy reading, and I end up having a poor experience reading it. So I spoke to Charlie of Charlie Brook, and the book that I'm going to go to next is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I'm doing this because the book will be a palate cleanser. It's shorter, the tone is entirely different, it's far removed from Anthony Trollope, it's far removed from Elizabeth Gaskell, and I want this read, and then I will also be starting the audiobook of Great Expectations. And the reason that I'm starting with the audiobook of this is because I have read this before, but you know, I still have quite a few books on this Victober TBR to get through, as well as some other books that I want to read in October, and getting bogged down by one for nearly 5 days and only making 100 pages through is just annoying me. I'll also say that I went researching, because in this copy, in the audiobook on Audible, chapter 14 was listed as The Mutiny, yet in this edition it's listed as The Meeting. So could people who do read Victorian literature and know a lot about it just contact me and tell me what's going on there? Because I was researching, and that's when I found out that Gaskell's prose was much maligned, and she wasn't seen as such a huge, renowned writer until the 1950s, when she went through a period of rediscovery. And currently I'm standing by the people that didn't like Gaskell, because I liked Cranford. I didn't much care for Sylvia's Lovers in the end. And at the moment, I'm not much caring for North and South. And I have to question the way that I communicate with Gaskell's prose, because it seems to be that with the two longer form novels that I've read, they have begun well, and they've had humour in the beginning, and they've had this verve that I've appreciated. And then within the first 100 pages, I have ended up finding them dreary, and that it takes a long time to get into the story, because we're only 20 pages of having been in Milton anyway, and maybe it's just Gaskell's style or her storytelling that I don't get on with. I don't know. I feel like a bit of a failure of a reader when it comes to Victorian literature. And I know that tons of people who love Gaskell are going to contact me to tell me I'm wrong, and I don't look forward to that either.
I'm accepting no judgment for being in the same position 24 hours later wearing the same hooded blanket and hat. Yesterday, once I'd finished speaking to you, took Sally for a wander around the forest, came back, and I've still only completed 3 rows of this jigsaw. I thought my mother would get involved and help me blitz through the edges yesterday. That didn't happen. However, I did listen to the audiobook of Great Expectations with Martin Jarvis narrating it, and this is so far a fantastic narration, and the way in which Jarvis narrates allows more of the humour to shine through, and it's perhaps something that I didn't notice the first time when I read this as a teenager, but it does heighten that thing and emphasizes what I mean when I say that Great Expectations is perhaps the most accessible point to start reading Dickens. I would recommend this narration if you are an audiobook fan, if you're able to listen to audiobooks. I would recommend this one. I think that I'm just going to stick with the audiobook for this and just listen to this all the way through, because I've already read the physical tome and it'll be nice to have this on in the background with this narration. It very much, in listening to it like this, it feels more like some sort of episodic drama, and I enjoyed that, and it was definitely a nice break away from North and South. I'm beginning to think that maybe Gaskell isn't a writer for me, but as I've said, we won't talk about Gaskell. I haven't yet started the picture of Dorian Gray. Today's plans are to head off to the forest early today because it looks like it could rain in a bit, and because later on I'm supposed to be going out for drinks with work. These are the same drinks that I was supposed to be going out for my birthday in July, which got postponed to September. I actually turned up in September only to find out they'd been cancelled and nobody thought to tell me this time, so stuck around for one drink until I could get a lift home. And so these ones are like, it's two of our volunteers' birthdays this week. One just happened and one's at the end of the week, so we went for the Wednesday in the middle. And so this will be the first time that we've been out with each other since May. It's perhaps the most sociable I ever get. There probably won't be any further updates here other than Great Expectations has a great narration, and I even think that Charlie is listening to a different narration of this. We're buddy reading this together. I say that it's more like just checking in with our thoughts here and there. She hasn't read this before I have. It's really the first of Dickens' like novels. I don't know why I never count A Christmas Carol as one of his novels, despite it being one of his major works, but it's the one in my mind. This is the first time I've revisited a novel with Great Expectations. I still got a few of his to read. As I say, I wanted to read Oliver Twist as well this month. Definitely by the end of this year. It just brightened up my day yesterday listening to Great Expectations. Even if Mrs. Gargery is a bit abusive. But hey, we can't all be perfect. It's Saturday. I haven't read anything Victorian since Thursday. Indeed, I didn't even read then. I just listened to Great Expectations on my way into town and then probably stopped after 10 minutes because I met somebody I used to volunteer with at the Macclesfield shop. So today, my plans are to knuckle down because I have a lot of Victorian books that I want to read and I haven't been doing that. So this vlog might run on to Sunday today for the first time ever, as I try and actually finish a book for this vlog. It turns out that this week of Victober was a bit of a bust. I did not read a single other Victorian novel. I DNF'd North and South on Tuesday. I didn't start The Picture of Dorian Gray until last night and only read the first chapter, and I'm about 150 pages into Great Expectations. I did, however, read a piece of modern fiction, which was the collection of Marple short stories, and I do have a separate vlog for that, which will be forthcoming. I have taken a holiday from work, and so I'd hoped that in having this last week off that I would actually, well, it's not been a week. I've had 2 days more than normal off from work, and I'd hoped that with them I would be able to get more read, but instead on Friday I finished this and read a lot of this, and yesterday I listened to Great Expectations, but a jigsaw has taken a lot of my time this week. I shouldn't start jigsaws because when I do, they become my main focus and my main priority.
And to be fair, I have tried to read every single day this week. Tuesday was when I DNF'd North and South and I started Great Expectations and I read the first 2 stories in the Miss Marple collection. Wednesday I continued to listen to Great Expectations, but I also was out with work in the evening. Thursday continued to listen to Great Expectations but had the writers group and obviously had to pick my car up and had a lot of things going on, so it's just meant that every single day prior to like officially starting this holiday I haven't had the time to actually get much more reading done. So I'm hoping that in the 3rd week of October I can actually get more Victorian books read and more of the modern books on my TBR sorted. But it does feel a bit like a failure of a week, and it's something that I need to have this conversation with myself, basically, that just because I'm doing other things that I enjoy doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It's just that I still sometimes can't get over this idea of having to read more than I'm able to, or reading in every single spare moment I have, not allowing myself any other form of entertainment or enjoyment. And I think that that's something that I certainly need to have a look at. I forgot I also been dipping in and out of the Christina Rossetti Goblin Market and other poems. Having read Christina Rossetti before, this isn't necessarily something that I am reading straight through. It's something that, like I say, I'm dipping in and out of simply because I like Christina Rossetti and it's nice to revisit a poet who I like. And I am beginning my buddy read of Armadale by Wilkie Collins with Emily of Novell Novels this week. But I do wish that I had got more read, and I'm feeling rather frustrated with myself and a bit irked. So that's fun. Anyway, how did your reading go this week? Did you achieve what you wanted to, or were you a complete failure like me? Do let me know. I hope that you got something out of this video, even if it was just something to put on in the background whilst you cleaned the spare bedroom. And until next time, that is all.